we are getting closer and closer to handing out the greatest individual award in the sport, an all-time trophy, really. I mean, it's one of the coolest ones. We've already seen guys like Travis Hunter do the Heisman pose after big plays this season. So this is what we're going to do for Power Rankings this week, presented by Citi. We're going to talk about those Heisman Trophy candidates. I'm going to give you my list right now, which is not actually how BetMGM has it. I still have Ashton Jeanty in the number 1 spot.
Okay.
He is absolutely the best running back in the country. I think he is one of those guys that if you are drafting in the NFL draft and you're like, oh, running backs, you get them later on. No, you're not going to get a guy like Ashton Jeanty. Like, do the Bijan Robinson, whatever calculation you were like on him. He's got to be a first-round guy. That's where you should be on Ashton Jeanty. His numbers are not quite as robust as they were earlier in the season. He did go over 200 yards this past week. He is playing in the Mountain West, a little bit out of sight, out of mind. You could point out the level of competition, not exactly the same as some of the other guys on my power rankings, but he's getting dinged or getting a little bit forgotten through no fault of his own. They're just a little bit out of the spotlight. He's still absolutely critical to what Boise State does for them to keep winning. Their only loss on the season, 3-point loss to the number 1 team in the country. He absolutely better get to New York, but I think he should still be considered the favorite to win it all. But BetMGM this week has decided that Travis Hunter, the 2A star from Colorado, should be the actual favorite. And honestly, a lot of people straw polls and a lot of lists this week. Everyone's kind of coalesced around that this week as well. Travis Hunter is right outside the top 10, around the top 10 in all the receiving categories, touchdowns, yards, all of that. Plus, we know how many snaps he plays on the defensive side of the ball. Totally unique player than we've seen in college football in a really, really long time. So rightfully so, he should be right up there. I just have him in my number 2 spot right now. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback of the undefeated Oregon Ducks, at number 3. He was my preseason favorite to win the Heisman. And listen, Oregon's good. They're just very sound. They're very consistent across the board. We talked so much about how much chaos there's been and top 5 upsets over and over again. They haven't really been involved in anything like that, or it's not really even gotten dicey since they played Ohio State. So he's just quietly getting it done for Oregon. Really good offense, really good team. I've got him in my number 3 spot. Cam Ward, number 4. These are the 4 guys that have been in the mix the entire season long.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Gabriel, maybe not as much in the early part of the season, but since they played and beat Ohio State, he's been there. These 4 dudes are going to be in New York City, I think. And it's just a matter of whatever order it's going to be between these 4. There's just not really been clear separation yet. Cam Ward is a magician, right? We've seen him do crazy things on the football field. Honestly, we knew the magic was going to run out at some point, and it did, and they lost a game to Georgia Tech, but he is the reason that they are as good as they are, that they're winning as much as they are, and he's pulled a rabbit out of his hat to win various games over the course of this season. These are 4 guys that I, again, would buy the plane ticket for right now to send them to New York City for the Heisman ceremony. Number 5, our guy Curtis Rourke.
Yep.
Indiana, listen, they are up to number 5 in the country in the latest college football playoff rankings. This is unbelievable. They're in line to host a game for the college football playoff. I think they can play Ohio State and lose to Ohio State as long as it's a competitive game and make the playoff. That's the kind of wiggle room I think Indiana has. Curtis Rourke has been really, really good, really consistent, really efficient. They've been really good on both sides of the ball, but Curtis Rourke to me, feels like he's going to be a lifelong NFL backup quarterback, make a ton of money, be really reliable when he needs to come to games. But he's just having a really special season too. So I would love to see him get to New York. I've seen him popping up on these lists. He's been on mine before as well at NBCSports.com. But I just think it's a clear drop off from 4 to 5 because those 4 guys, Ashton Jeanty, Travis Hunter, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, are the guys that are defining this season. These are the players and the individuals that are must-see TV.
I'm there with you. And to continue on Curtis Rourke, I think you and I on Saturdays are real tuned in to Big Ten football, obviously for what we cover in prime time. But in the story of college football this year, Indiana has been in the forefront. And a big reason why is because of what Rourke has done. And even last week against Michigan, where his stats do not look like they looked in the other games, like there were some drops out there. It's not all his fault. Like he was doing everything that he could. And so I love the fact that people nationally are starting to pay attention to the way that he's played. If I had any changes, I would flip 1 and 2. I'm big Travis Hunter. I was pretty early on the season. I know he got banged up and kind of Colorado fell into the shadows a little bit. But like it's hard for me to say that anybody can be in the same league as him when he's playing over 100 reps a game, right? Like that's the impact. It's not
but here's the thing.
Go ahead.
His most impressive stat, and the first thing everyone leads with, is the number of snaps.
Yes.
Is that enough? Like, I mean, it
is for me.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering. I think obviously he's doing so much, it's unprecedented. But like everyone else, we start with like, you know, like where they're throwing the ball, like the touchdowns, the yardage. For him, it's the amount of time he's on the field. I don't know, right. Is that equivalent?
Well, I'll say this. He's got to split the pill offensively because that's one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, right? Like he's not a guy who's just going to get every single target because they've got 4 dudes in that wide receiver room that all deserve targets. And then he goes out there and he plays defense, and he would be, if he was just a corner, he would be the number 1 corner on my board, higher than Will Johnson or anybody else anybody would try to pitch to me. And having been somebody who we played Indiana in 2015, and that was a game where I played 108 reps and I thought I was going to die. He does that on a week-to-week basis. That's like really tough work. To go out there and perform that way. So like, I know that's not a stat that people typically look at, but I do think it is something that it's hard. It's really hard for me to overlook the impact that he can have on both sides of the ball.
No, I think that's fair. Again, I like, this is my personal list and my personal
it's
power
a good
ranking.
List. It's hard to argue because Jeanty, to your point, like we haven't seen something like it in a little while.
No, and that's where it's like, again, I just don't think anyone's clearly separated. Travis might though. Like he's gonna have this run to Big 12 championship game. Colorado, nobody had them in the college football playoff in year 2 for Deion Sanders after a 4-win season. So he's going to have a lot of spotlight games down the stretch. And then obviously you're looking at a couple teams, like we're all going to watch Curtis Rourke against Ohio State. You're talking about Big 10 ACC championship game participants. Like the moments and the spotlight will be there down the stretch.
No, there certainly will be some moments. I can't wait to watch this one. People have said it's unexciting. I disagree with it. I like the idea that they're, kind of, it's coming down to the wire and you really have to focus in on what's going on. People who have votes, which Nicole, I know you do, and you do a great job of watching all of the games. Watch the damn games, please, so we can really decide who the most outstanding player in college football is.